Hello and welcome to ESG Unearthed, a collaboration between Future of Mining 365 and Sympact Advisory. My name is Liz Freele, Managing Partner at Sympact, an ESG think tank and consultancy serving the mining industry and beyond. Joining me today, I have Milena Vasquez, Executive Vice President at Collective Mining and co-founder and Vice President of WIM Colombia. Welcome, Ana.
Hi, Liz. Thank you for inviting me to your program. I'm really excited to be here.
Likewise, I'm looking forward to our conversation. So, Ana, your industry track record in Colombia is very impressive, but I know one thing you are really passionate about, which I'm excited to talk about today, is gender equality in mining over in Colombia. You were a longtime advocate and champion on this subject. You've even been recognized as the top 100 women in mining. So it's not surprising, last year you were invited to lead a team by the Inter-American Development Bank and the Colombian Ministry of Mines to lead a thorough baseline study on the current status of gender equality in the extractive sector in Colombia. So maybe let's start with the importance of that first baseline. What did the results reveal?
Well, Liz, yes, as you said, I was part of a team that did a baseline study about gender equality in the mining sector in Colombia. This study was basically a diagnosis of the situation of equity, gender, and women's empowerment in the mining industry. The study was led by the Minister of Mines and Energy of Colombia, and it was supported by IDB, the International Development Bank, and this was implemented by Insulco and Corwoman. I don't know if you know, but Insulco and Corwoman, Insulco is basically a consultancy firm focused on sustainability issues. And Corwoman is an NGO focused on gender equality matters. And in this study, more than 70 companies participated in the research, from which 23 companies were from the mining sector. And I must say that these were like the largest companies in the mining industry in the country. And you were asking me about the importance of this baseline study, Liz, and I have to say that this study was relevant because this was the first time that gender equality issues were measured in the mining industry, at least in our country. As you know, if you cannot measure something, you cannot improve it. So measuring is the first step to start implementing the actions needed to have a more sustainable sector.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about what the results revealed in terms of what the companies most need to focus on.
Well, one of the most important results is that the majority of the companies, 65%, claim to have a gender focus, but only 23% of them have real commitments. We found also that only 29% were really measuring and had evaluation tools, and also were communicating those results to their stakeholders. And we found basically with this result that companies say to have a real commitment, but then they don't transfer that into real actions. That was like the most important thing. And then we found, this number, we were looking for women participation number in the industry, and we didn't have that in the country. We had a lot of sources of information, but never so comprehensive study like this was done before. So we found that 13%, women participation in the sector was 13%, which means that for every 10 people employed in the sector, only one is a woman. So the results also show that female employment is more concentrated in middle levels of hierarchy in the companies, and the higher level, the higher the level of responsibility in the companies, the lower the participation of women in the sector. So this basically is confirming what is happening in the rest of the world. And about what the companies are doing, just to answer to your question, the companies were really good at certain aspects. We evaluated 18 aspects. We used a tool called WebTool. The WebTool is an online tool designed by the United Nations and IDB, the International Development Bank Index. And so companies could measure their situation. And we found that the best aspects where companies in the mining industry in Colombia were working on was three, basically. Guaranteeing a labor environment free from violence, harassment, and sexual exploitation, meeting the specific needs around health and safety of the employees, and implementing actions that increase the well-being of women before and during the maternity leave. But if you see here, Liz, all these aspects are almost an obligation by law. So we need to work more. We need to do more. And what are those aspects that maybe we need to focus more, that we need to start working more, because let's say that those were those aspects where the companies didn't come out so well in the picture. And so basically there are like 4 things. And actually this has to do a lot of with decreasing conflict in our areas of operations. The first one is prioritizing gender equality in local procurement programs. And the second one is, we need to support suppliers so they can have a gender approach in their companies, which is something so necessary to improve our engagement in our local communities. Linking women's businesses in the supply chain, is something that will help us to decrease conflict in our areas of interest. And the third aspect that we need to work on also is to do better at supporting employees in the role as parents and caregivers. And lastly, but not less important, we need to improve the implementation of processes for the professional development and promotion of employees with gender equality approach.
Great. So this all came out of the study, and I guess we'll have to chat in a few years once you do a check-in on how the progress has gone.
We need to do that. And the idea is that we can do that like a second in 3 years, more or less, because this is a very comprehensive and very thought of study. We need to do it.
Brilliant. That's really fantastic work. Congrats. So I wanted to ask you, you talk about the representation of women at different levels of hierarchy within companies on average, but something very interesting in Colombia has been the rise of women in leadership positions that have been quite prominent, specifically the Minister of Mines and Energy, the president of the National Mining Agency. And so, prior to these roles, gender wasn't a big topic on the agenda in our industry, but now WIM Colombia has also been born. You're a co-founder of that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how this early journey has been, in this time that now gender equality within the mining industry is a topic on the agenda.
Well, it's been a very exciting journey, Liz. I team up with a group of other amazing women in the sector, which wanted to make visible the role of female talent in our industry. The name of the advocacy group is Women in Mining Colombia. And of course, we wanted to increase the participation of women in the mining industry. We considered that founding this group would help us to achieve this goal, so we did it. It has been rewarding to find that so many women wanted to talk about certain things, to talk about their challenges, those challenges that we all face all the time, to talk about all those elements that represent a barrier to keep us growing on our professional careers. What is fair, what is unfair. Sometimes 3 years ago, we didn't understand what was fair and what was unfair. Sometimes there are certain things that are so attached to our culture that we didn't even think about it. And so it's been really rewarding to see that we have grown so much. And of course, having Maria Fernanda Suarez, the Minister of Mines, she was 3 years ago, she was the Minister of Mines. She had in her team a Vice Minister of Mines that was also a woman. And the president, as you said, the president of the ANM, the National Mining Agency, which is our mining authority, was also a woman. So this was very exciting because they were the ones who put this topic on the agenda. So the role that they played here was so important. Maybe without them, I wouldn't be here talking to you today.
Mm-hmm.
for
So
sure.
significant, really significant.
And
It's amazing what a small
you
group of
know,
people can do.
so talking about women in mining, you know, in this year, after the Maria Fernanda, the Minister of Mines, the Vice Minister, and the President of the ANM starting talking about this and putting equity, gender in the gender equality in the agenda. You know, now you see more leaders of the industry talking about this, implementing programs about this. We have a champion, a program called in Women in Mining called Champion WIM, and you can see examples. For example, let me just bring one: Santiago Cardona. Santiago Cardona is the president of Mineros. He's surrounded by women today. He has a lot of programs in his company with a gender equality focus, and you know, all the things that he has to say about changes in his company have been great.
Fantastic. So I'm curious what you were most excited about personally for WIM, for Colombian women in this industry. Is there any particular area with all this progress that most excites you?
Well, I'm very excited to see how the organization has been growing. Now we are starting like a second stage with more associates, more women interested in staying in the sector. We see young girls excited about working in the industry, companies interested in engaging with gender equality programs. That's something that you didn't see before. Of course, there's a lot to do, Liz, of course, but we must be proud of these small advances that we have had. In the first stage, we focus basically on empowerment programs, coaching, and also, as I mentioned before, involving men in the discussion and visualizing, obviously, the role of women in the sector. Now, I can say that the awareness was raised, and that was our main focus during our first stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an excellent start. You should be really proud. So, okay, from your experience, maybe let's switch to, you've been in the industry for a long time, in addition to all these awesome efforts recently. What are some of the main challenges and struggles that you see inside companies that companies face with this theme in the Colombian mining ecosystem? And do you have any tips or solutions to overcome them based on what you've seen?
Well, Liz, I was actually last week talking with the rest of the group about, what is what we want to do. And there is one thing that I would say is the most important barrier, and is the cultural barrier, is the most important challenge that companies have. Maybe you find, companies that want to advance with, promote gender equality and advance, and they are finding really difficult to do it because of the culture. I think gender equality in a sector as masculinized as this one requires commitment and profound changes in policies, but also in the work environment that is very related to culture, right? If you are a company that wants to promote equality, you should look for a change in the collective imaginaries and in the unconscious biases that influence behavior in our employees. Cultural transformation is not going to happen easily in the short term, but we need to address this issue with education and leadership. Small and medium-sized businesses, I would say that this is the second challenge that we face. Sometimes they don't have the capabilities in terms of financial and human resources that allow them to successfully manage their gender equity approach. So a recommendation for them would be to start measuring what the situation is and prioritize certain areas, because you cannot do everything at the same time. You have to start, with something. Then create short, medium, and long-term goals in the areas where you want to improve. And finally, those goals should aim at improving the female participation in all areas, especially in the management positions and in traditionally masculinized areas like operations.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And so you mentioned small and medium businesses, right? I think that's a really interesting one that I specifically wanted to ask you about in terms of procurement, which you also mentioned earlier. You know, when we talk about this conversation about gender and mining, so often the conversation is, well, what's the proportion of representation, what we were speaking about earlier. But to really have a lasting and meaningful and broad-based impact, we of course have to think outside the fence. We have to think about how we do social investment, how we do our local procurement programs, how we support small businesses in our local ecosystems as well with that gender lens. You know, we know that there's extraordinary impact to be had outside the fence. And you have some great experiences previously in your role with Continental Gold, if I recall. What about the Visionette Collective? Like, what are some of the things you guys are thinking about on this point? I know you're at an early stage, but I'm a big believer in get things right early, even if it's just starting with the low-hanging fruit, because something's better than nothing. And then you're developing that culture from early on, both for yourselves and for the local small businesses.
Well, Liz, Collective Mining is a junior exploration company whose management team is led by Ari Sussman. Ari Sussman was the CEO at Continental Gold and founder of Continental Gold. We were responsible for building the most modern, high-grade, large-scale gold mine in Colombia, the Buritica project. And today we got together to work with Collective. We have been here for a year or more than a year now. We are working in Caldas, which is a very friendly jurisdiction. And at this early stage, as you mentioned, Collective has already 36% of women participation in the company. And it's because for us, sustainability is one of our main focus. We have a lot of women in the operations, and it's been satisfying. Really satisfying, a satisfying experience since we have decreased absence and increased efficiency in those operations. And as I mentioned before, involving women suppliers in the supply chain of the companies is one of the areas that, according to the baseline study, companies need to address. In Continental, we had a beautiful experience regarding that. We had a program to strengthening productive projects with a gender approach. And this was a very comprehensive program that increased women businesses in the supply chain of the company with all the positive effects that you can imagine that these type of programs had in communities. Better engagement, reduction of conflicts, and more reliability and consistency in the supply chain. Yeah. So you were asking me what, we are at a very early stage at Collective, but we are already, doing a lot of things regarding, to increase women participation in our company. So let me talk to you about something about participatory monitoring. We are very sensitive at Collective with water conservation and transparency. So we have implemented a participatory monitoring program where we are measuring water quality and flows with the participation of members of the community. We have identified many women leaders in the community. Some of them are actually presidents of the community action boards. And now they are receiving training to strengthening their organizations. Our goal is basically in 2022 that this participatory monitoring program can have a more gender focus, so more women from the communities can participate and receive training on hard and soft skills. And by this, I mean basically training on environmental technical issues, but also in leadership development. That is the two things where we want to focus during 2022. And the idea is that in the future, why not? These women can offer environmental services to the company, and some of them can become candidates to the municipal council. With this training, that's what we are aiming to do. And this is just a start. This is just one of the social investment programs that we'll have with a gender approach at Collective.
It's a really fantastic example. Thanks for sharing. Well, I see that we are just at time. So thank you so much for joining me today, Ana. I really enjoyed hearing your insights and learning a little bit more about gender equality in Colombia and some of the awesome plans. I look forward to seeing how it goes in the coming years. Any last thoughts, comments, or advice that you would like to share?
No, Liz, just I want to thank you for inviting me to share these thoughts with you. Thank you.
A pleasure.